So this case just popped up into my studio, and every time I look at it, it just has that wow effect. Clean lines, simple design, what's not to love about it? This, guys, is a Fractal Design POP Air case. Thanks for popping in my video, guys, I am Vlad, and if you are a first-time viewer, consider subscribing to the channel. And now let me tell you something about this cool case. This one here is a POP Air White, well, simply because I am a sucker for white builds, but this case is also available in several accented color variants, which literally pops out of the crowd of plain looking cases. For example, there's a black-orange combo, purple-black, blue and black, and so on. It's so cool that you have so many options to choose from. Let's start from the interior this time, as I got a real surprise for you guys when we come to the front of the case. So on the side there's a tempered glass panel, which is not covering the whole portion of the interior, nor it is cut down right where the PSU shroud begins. It's halfway there. And I love this unusual approach. Again, it pops out. White lines on it cover all the screws and rivet holes, making it more pleasing to the eye. And of course this panel used thumb screws to be secured to the case itself. First thing here that again pops to your eye is that large cutout behind the motherboard tray, so you can easily mount or change the CPU cooler or AIO pump without removing the board from the case. Next we have a full-length cutout next to the board area, on the side, bottom and on the upper portion as well. And this makes cable management super easy and always straight, as all the cables will pass through at the correct position aligned with the board itself. Although no grommets here, because this is that mid-range price which we will cover later. The PSU shroud area is perforated where the PSU is positioned, but it is not open in the front area at all. Of course, traditional to the Fractal PSU shroud is angled a bit, which again gives it a better visual appeal. You can attach an SSD caddy that holds 2 SSD drives here as well. The caddy is also positioned behind the motherboard tray, you know, the usual place, but if you wish to display your SSD drives, you have the option to do it here. CPU clearance is up to 175mm, which is plenty for even extremely large CPU heatsinks, and since front fans are positioned from the front side, you have the clearance of up to 380mm for the GPU. If you decide to mount an AIO, this will be reduced 2.5 cm, so again plenty enough space even for the beefiest GPUs out there. Oh, and yes, it comes with 2 fans in the front. These are the Fractal Aspect 12 fans, and you also get one at the back, which also has a sliding rail mechanism, so it can be positioned a bit up or down. The back of the case is usual 140mm fan here, no support for larger fans, the IO shield opening and 7 PCI slots, meaning that the case supports up to ATX sized boards, including all the smaller variants as well. And of course the PSU shroud, which is installed from the inside, I mean the PSU. Here we also have a fine mesh dust filter, which is pulled from the back side for cleaning once in a while. Now let's talk about this front here, because this is such an unusual move in 2022 that I think it's genius that Fractal pulled it. Let's be honest here, the front and actually the whole case resembles the NZXT H5xx series so much, but in my opinion it is so much better and in so many ways. But let's see that front. Mesh grille with some hexagonal shapes, you can see it under a certain angle, a really cool design. Under that mesh there is some stuff hidden. Check this little tab here. Pull that and what do you know, this little plastic piece is held by magnets, but what is hidden here is much more important. There's this little drawer you can use to put in your flash drives or little knickknacks or whatever you wish, but what's cool here is that there is another hole here, and actually these 2 holes, one is occupied with the drawer and the long forgotten 5.25-inch bay drives. Yes, someone remembered that and decided to put them here. Actually, if you still own an optical drive, you can mount it here and it will be hidden in plain sight with that magnetic cover. It sure is a blast from the past. Once we remove the front mesh grille, we can see that there are no additional filters here, as the mesh is dense enough to act as a dust filter, but also wide enough to let the air flow unobstructed inside. Here we have those Aspect 12 fans and support for up to 2 140mm fans. Also, this means that radiator support is limited to 240 or 280 in the front. Right side of the case hides all the goodies. Metal cover, no insulation, thumb screw secured. And here we have a bunch of cables running from the front I/O panel and the fans. Fans are of course PWM and 5V addressable standard plug, daisy chainable as well. And here is that SSD tray you saw earlier that can also be mounted in the front. Velcro straps are present everywhere, cable management is super easy as in every Fractal case. Down in the bottom chamber we have two HDD caddies, one is on the floor and the other is positioned up on the ceiling of the PSU shroud. The reason behind this approach is that you can always use one of the 5¼ bay for optical drive and still use one HDD position. The other caddy can be positioned on the side of the case as well, so you don't have to remove it completely. Both of these caddies support either 3.5 or 2.5" drives, SSD-wise 4 of them or 2 HDDs and 2 SSDs and so on. The PSU space is not an issue even for larger PSUs, and you can hide all your cables and still use a 5¼ drive in there as well as the HDD tray too. Let's check out the front panel and top of the case. It is designed super sleek, in a straight line but tastefully, and everything is clearly visible. Power button with RGB effects visible on it, the RGB cycle button, headphone and microphone jacks, 2 USB 3.0 ports, and what is this Type-C port, but it's not there. And yes, you are correct, but this is here intentionally, as you can get a Type-C port separately for around $10 if you wish to use it and simply mount it yourself, as it is super easy. This was done to keep the cost of the case reasonable and in line with the competition. Moving further to the top of the case, fine mesh magnetic filter and support for two 120 or 140mm fans, again translated to radiator support 240 or 280mm. So building in this case is such a breeze, because Fractal is always easy for the first time and also experienced builders. Materials are premium and literally zero problems along the way. Also, this build turned out way nicer than I thought it would. It's a pity that I don't have any white GPU, as it would make this a perfect build. Okay, so how much is this case? It's around $95 for a silent variant, the one that has a closed front panel, $112 for an Air version in all different colors, and $124 for XL version as well. That one is a bit bigger, as the name suggests, and it can fit up to 3 fans either in the front or up top. So are there any cons to this case? Actually, in my opinion, there are 2. The first one is that USB-C port, which should be mandatory now, but Fractal got away with the additional port for $10, which is not a big deal, but again, it's 2022 and it should be the default now. Secondly, you can get in real problems mounting some AIOs up top. Fractal included 2 rails, so you can slightly shift the AIO closer to the glass side panel, and this also makes a little pro as well, as that way you can cheat a bit and mount a 360 AIO up top, even though technically there is no space, but you can get away with this. What I just said makes it have no cons then. Well, I gotta get my things together. Anyhow guys, that is what I think about this case. The thermals are of course in check. Here is what I got with a stock config, not even adding additional top fans, but bear in mind that this would differ as not all hardware is the same and so on, and adding additional top fans would be better for the temperatures, but I wanted to test it out how it behaves in the stock config. All in all, this is such a refreshment in a vast sea of cases that can be found on the market today. It's a direct competition with NZXT H500 series, and in my opinion, Fractal nailed it, especially with accent color options, as well as adding not 1 but 2 5¼ drive bays in otherwise unused area in the front of the case. It's safe to say that this case will pop every time you look at it. And I know I used too many pop puns in this video, but you know what? I'm glad I did, and it's a good case and it deserves more attention. Thanks for watching guys, you know the drill, sub to the channel, like and share the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Oh, and don't forget to check the build video I did in this case as well. See you in the next one.